Okay, let's talk about style templates, right? It's going to be a deep dive into the style templates. This is a new thing that is coming with Joomla 4.1. What's interesting is that lately there is this buzzword with childs. This is a tweet from yesterday from Jen Simmons. Jen is part of the Safari team, and Safari is the first browser that ships the has selector, which, as it says, for a selector, blah blah, select all the A elements that contain an image child. Is this basically a parent selector? So it looks like this. This was one of the things that we always wanted in CSS. But we're not going to talk about this. We're going to talk about the child templates in Joomla. The new thing, which is not new because the code was merged by George in a very big leap of faith back in the August of 2020. It was merged back in 2020, but it was merged only the core functionality. It means that the UI for any user to do anything meaningful with child templates was totally missing. And the problem is that I promised basically George that I'm gonna have it ready before Joomla version 4, and that didn't happen. Hello, I'm Dimitris Grammatiko. I've been contributing to Joomla since 3.5 and have done quite some work for Joomla 4. Things like the new installer, introducing web components, a new build system for the static assets, help Charlie and Kieran with the two default templates. Also, I've been for a couple of years the JS team leader or whatever that thing was. And the team basically did the transaction from jQuery to vanilla JS. We hated that work, and then we did it again from vanilla JS to modern JS, like ES 2015. And lately, and that's why that thing didn't sit with version 4.0, I helped George to bring Bootstrap 5 to Joomla 4. A little thing about what I'm going to talk about. It's going to be a little bit explanation on how the Joomla's template engine is working, and basic overview of the architecture and the decisions made before for us. Then explain what is a child template, how it works and stuff like that, and then some more demo, and then your questions. So this is not only for Joomla, but it's a broader thing. Only the templating part is Joomla specific. So let's take one simple request, like you typing in your browser joomla.org, or you click on a link somewhere, and what it happens is the browser doesn't understand human language. It needs to translate what we give in it to something more meaningful. It means an IP, and what it does a DNS resolution, converting what we type to something to an IP. When it finds that IP, it will fetch that IP, and basically what happens is that it will reach our web server, which it could be either Apache, Nginx, or any of these kind of things. And the very simplified version of what a web server is doing is basically looking, do I have a file in the folder that I'm watching that corresponds to the request that I've been asked? If it does, then it will stream that file back, and that closes the loop. If not, and this is the case in our example, it will say, okay, I don't know what to do with this thing. Maybe PHP can do something. So PHP will bootstrap Joomla. And by saying bootstrap, it means that Joomla will start executing by reading a lot of files, libraries, and stuff like that. Joomla itself, it has a life cycle, and as it progresses, as it executes code, it will reach one very significant point of the code, which is the routing. The routing is very important because what it does basically is it will ask all the components. It will say, okay, I have this request. Does any of you components know how to handle this? And let's say for this example, content has the answer for this. So it will say, yeah, I can handle this. And by saying that, it will put the MVC of Joomla. It means that the controller will kick in, the controller will load the model. The model will fetch all the data from the database. It will pass it to the view, which is the template, but it's the template of the component. Or in terms of the file system, it's the /tmpl in comp content. And basically what happens in that file, in the default.php in tmpl, let's say, it will concatenate all the data structure that was given by the model into some meaningful HTML string, basically. The program stores that in the memory, the chunk of HTML that created by the component, and goes to the next stage, which the next stage is basically the template. And it will boot the template. And by saying boot the template is, it will read the index.php of your template. And once it reads it, it will get all the JDoc colon includes. It will do an arrangement because the order is very important, and then it will go and evaluate each of these. And it goes like that. The JDoc include type equals component. It's the component, but we already have the evaluation of that code because it ran before, so it's already there. But things like JDoc includes type equals modules, name menu, it means it's the position menu. It will execute the part of the code and say, okay, do I have any modules here? If it has any modules there, probably module menu, it will go and boot the module and do a similar thing as the components did, the MVC part, like booting a helper, going getting data from the database, assemble all together into, again, a layout of the module this time. And once all these JDoc includes have been evaluated, the template will just concatenate everything and send back the HTML. And that's basically how the templating is working in Joomla. Sorry. This is a very, very good architecture. It's simplified. It's not very difficult to follow, but it has the templates themselves are having some huge problems for many years. One of the big problems is that you cannot touch files of a template because once you touch them, and you do an update, you lose them. And here comes the idea of child templates. And child template is a template with only one file, a templateDetails.xml. The contents of that file looks like that, and it's an exact copy of the parent template. Obviously, you cannot have a child without having a parent. And the important bits here are the last lines, the last three ones. The parent signifies which template by name is the parent. The inheritable with a value 0, it means that this is a child. And the media is something that will disturb a lot of people, and I'm sorry, I will explain. This is the file structure of the new Cassiopeia. As you see, it misses all the JS, CSS, images, and SAS files. And there was a reason for this. I will explain in a bit. This change also reflects into the templateDetails.xml of the actual Cassiopeia. So this is the new one. The difference is on line 10, that little bit of inheritable one signifies that this template can have children. The other interesting part is line 20. So the templates that can have children, child templates, should store all their static assets in the media folder in the root installation of Joomla. The reasons were two. Security, first of all. Right now, Joomla needs this, the line number 2, needs this thing everywhere in every PHP file. If you open any PHP file in any Joomla installation, you will find this line always. And there is a reason for this, because if you remove that thing, then that file becomes an entry point. I will not go further explaining why it's bad to have entry points. It's security 101. That's the one reason. The other reason is consistency. Everything else in Joomla store their static assets in media, except templates, which for legacy reasons used to have their own way of doing things. To help people transition, I wrote a simple Node CLI. You can find it, and I will post later on all the links. You just give it either a template folder or a template zip, and it will do the translation automatically. Good news is that talking with some friends, I can say that Kjaran is from Joomla 51. He said that he will release templates supporting child templates. Charlie also will do both his templates, the Lightning and the Joomla 4 backend template, and also I have another template called Sloth, which is a PWA, so be careful on that. Right, one thing for developers, basically. If you have code that programmatically sets a template, or if you append static files in any template, CSS, JS, blah, blah, make sure that you check your code. Also check your code if you ever override the template view of COM templates. These things have changed. Right, and I guess this was that portion of the talk. So I just have one simple installation of Joomla here with Joomla 4.1. And I'm gonna just showcase a few ways that you can use child templates and see it in action. So let's say that you have one template, Cassiopeia, let's say, and for some reason you want to do some custom CSS. You create a user.css and you say, let's say, like, right? Pretty basic stuff. And if we
It's not in the right folder, I think. It's not in the CSS folder.
where did I create it? Yeah.
The root.
Okay. Yeah. So one thing is that this is really bad user interface, and I'm sorry about this. It's just bad. We should rewrite this component right from the beginning. So you have to select here the folder that you want this, and then do this thing again. So this is not some code that you should ever wrote. It's just to make a case why you should want to use child templates. Not this. Right. No. So you just change the background. It's probably you could do it in many different ways and much easier. So let's create a child template and say what we can do with this. Let's call it test. Doesn't matter. As I said, the child template just has one thing, and there is this new button also that you can swap between templates and styles, so you don't have to do weird back and forth with the menu. It's much easier. So basically, we did the same, and I guess nothing changed. I mean, now the style, the template that I'm using is this one, which is the Cassiopeia test, which is the child, which uses exactly the same. Nothing changed, right? But the interesting part here is that if I go and say create a new file, user.c doesn't need the user. This is who created this thing, right? So if you create the same exact user.css in the child template now, and you say background color yes. I guess that's all. The point for the child templates is that if I had to do, if there was a need that I wanted to just change one file, and this is the whole point. If I want to make just a change in one file, I had to fork the whole Cassiopeia. And the whole Cassiopeia might be 80 files. I don't know how many CSS and JS and other files exist there. Now I only have 2 files, the files that I care about. All right, so let's do something more interesting. Let's take the contents of the index of the parent template, right? Cassiopeia. And let's go to the child and say new file, index, extension PHP, create, and paste. So I just copy pasted everything without changing anything, right? I'm gonna just, where is the content? I'm gonna just say here, I don't know, let's say, okay. Save this thing, and I'm guessing I have a hello London. Okay, this is just to showcase that we just have only one file to maintain. We don't have to maintain everything. But it gets better. It gets better in many ways. Like you can go to the XML and you can say, you know what, this is very nice, but I honestly need a new position, and the position should be named London, right? Why not? And if you go to the index, and let's take this one and place it just above London, where is the... So if I change the name here and say London, if I refresh, nothing happened, because why should it happen? We didn't say that something should happen there. But if you go to site modules and create a new module, let's say, because this is empty, it doesn't have any data. Big South, that TinyMC now supports nice source code, so you can see the code in a better way. And I cannot type. This was something that Brian bring into Joomla 4.1. Big shout to him. So we want to have this in a new position. And I think that if we go to the child template, which is this one, it should have a London, and rightfully it has a London position. So if I save and go here, just above London, it should say below, it should say hello again. And that's how you do things pretty interesting. But it goes even better. Again, with the template XML, templateDetails.xml, you can do one more interesting thing. So you can take one field, right? And you can say my JS. I want to be text area. Tag everybody. Why not? No, please don't do it. And I will discard everything else because they're not of use for this case. You have to remember the name here, right? The my.js is important. So let's save it. Let's close this. Let's go back to styles. Let's go to Cassiopeia, and if we scroll down, you see the track everybody, and it awaits for something. Big salt, if you... Okay, sorry. If you using tracking things like Google Analytics and stuff like that, there is one very nice thing. If you don't have child templates, and it's this one, which is basically just a plugin or a module that instead of loading 73 kilobytes of JS, it just loads one, which is pretty good. And basically it's a wrapper for this thing. And I'm gonna, because we're doing our own thing, I'm gonna just copy this code verbatim as it is, put it here. If this was a live site that I was going to do something, I was going to put here my Google Analytics ID. But for the time being, we're just gonna save it, right? And if we go to the front end and check the head, we will expect to have somewhere a script, but we don't. And it's normal that we don't, because we didn't say to the actual template file to do that. And to do that, it's extremely easy. I'm gonna do it directly. So we will go to head and say, I need a script. Probably you want to put also a nonce here, but not in this demo. This is PHP echo, and I want to get this params get. Do you remember what was the name? My.js, right? Close this thing, save. And surely if I reload here and check, the code is here. And you can do any kind of such optimization or customizations of any template that supports child templates. In a few minutes, I think I show you quite a few things. And hopefully you will impress us all with what you're gonna do with child templates. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's amazing. I learned so much there, and
was I too fast? Was I
no,
too
no, no, no. Well, not no, but it just, I was like, oh wow, you can do that. Oh, I can see so clearly how it just keeps just the files you need. You haven't got to wade through an entire template again to try and find what you changed, because it's just there. It's those few files. One of the things that straight away hit me is there any way that you can export what you've done so you could use your child template on another site? So I do a child template, which is my standard one for my clients, and then I can export it so I can use it in other sites and then develop those child templates to have their unique character.
Right. So that's a fairly... we should be able to do it, right? It's a good request. So the child template is an exact template. Is a template, a real template, and I'm gonna need this one. So let's say, in order to export something, you need to create a zip, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll go to the Cassiopeia test. First of all, let's change the name because it will collide. So Cassiopeia London, right? And
oh, it's gone very quiet. You still there, Dimitri?
What I did there?
Oh, you suddenly went quiet.
You still hear me?
Yes, you said
okay.
Change it to London, and then it went very quiet.
Okay, sorry. So just copying files. The interesting part, and basically I don't remember exactly if this needs something different. The only part is that you have to collect all the files and put them in the right order.
Media, yeah.
So basically what I need to collect also here is how do you create folders in this thing? So if I collect also the media, and this is how the actual media folder looks like. Hopefully, if I did it correctly, if I compress this thing, it will give me a zip. And yes, if we try to install it, I did something wrong. Okay, but at least it installed, I guess. Yes.
Ooh.
Wow.
Right. So okay.
Yeah, you have to give it a different folder name, because the folder is still the one of the test and not of the London.
No.
In the XML.
No.
Destination template site Cassiopeia _ test.
Ah, right. For the folder. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's why. Yeah. Very good. Spot on. Good eyes. But you get the idea. I mean, okay. The UI doesn't provide everything that probably you might ask, but I think it's much better than what the WordPress that has no utility at all, no helpful UI for the child themes that they have. Also, just say that the child templates of Joomla is the same thing as the child themes of WordPress. It's not like we didn't invent anything here.
Right, and that's amazing. That's really, really good. So, you also answered my next question: was can children have siblings? But we've got siblings there. So how would you choose which one works on your site? Let's say you actually created 2 child templates. How do you specify which one to use?
Right. So first of all, there are
no pressure.
Okay. There are in the extension manager, if you go to the templates, so here is how you uninstall things, or you can disable things.
Okay.
If what I did here is the extension disable. It's not extension, it's a template. I just disabled this. So if I go now back to the template manager, it's not showing up. Back again, if I enable it, it should be there. But how you pick which template showing in which you can have, first of all, as we say, you can have as many templates as you want, childs or parents. And you can select into the styles. All templates have this menu assignment, where you can say use this style with this template in this route, but you can have like 100 menu items, and you can have 100 different templates. It's, of course, it's not maintainable, but you can do that. I don't know. Did that answer your question?
It totally answers my question, and it's. I mean, there's also other conversation going on in the site, which is great, and it's basically asking when you do an update, basically what then updates. So the update would update Cassiopeia, and Laura was saying, explaining that obviously, if there was a bug fix in Cassiopeia,
yes,
then you're not going to have the bug fix in your children. But one of the side things about about using child templates is you're only doing the code in the files you want.
exactly.
So you've only got to check that file or files to see if you need to update the bugs, rather than the whole site, and that I've done that in the past, and that's a real pain, because what I've ended up doing is overwriting my own code, because there's just so much to update. So having that simplicity of maybe just 1 or 2 files, and then we can just go in and check those 1 or 2 files when there's a big update, is brilliant. I think that's really lovely.
Dimitri,
I'm pretty sure that later on in these updated files, it will be much better integrated with child templates. Right now, it's a bit flaky. No, it's not flaky. I mean, it works as it's supposed to work, but it's not fully aware of the updating procedure and stuff like that. It only cares about the layout overrides. Sorry.
Dimitri, what's the idea between about having the assets of the child template in media rather than in templates?
Right. The big problem. Right. So, you know that Joomla 4 has this ht-accessing libraries, right? So what this thing is doing, that I'll show you demo. If you type /libraries, you get this. And this is what you should always get. Joomla should only have 4 entry points. The indexes, like the root index, the administrator/index, the API index, and then there is another one file for the update, which is in command blah blah on Joomla update or whatever. These are your entry points for your application. Everything else should be locked down. That means templates, components, modules, plugins, everything should be locked down. And this is not something that will happen in one day or in next day or next month or probably 5 or 6, Joomla 5 or 6. But the idea is that it should get stricter and more secure for everybody. Does that answer somehow your question?
Indirectly, yes.
Yeah, so
it means
so
that I know there's a good reason for it, so now I won't complain about it.
The thing is that there are many things wrong about Joomla. The worst part for me as a front-end developer is that first of all, most, I will say all, but there are few good developers out there. They don't use the HTML helpers or the web asset manager in Joomla to load properly their static assets. There are still developers that they don't store their actual static assets like JS and CSS in the media folder, and they store it in the component wherever thing. And these are, the ecosystem is broken because as a front-end developer, if you don't load correctly the JS and also in the correct place, like in the layout part of a component, plugin, module, whatever, it means that I cannot, first of all, just erase that line if I don't like it. And then if you even have it in the wrong place, I cannot even override it because you don't use the override mechanism of Joomla. So I think that Joomla at some point they have to converge on some standards and say, okay, we're doing it like this, and everybody should follow this thing. Otherwise, you don't go into JED or I don't know what's going to be the.
I was just thinking from an integrations point of view. I never use the interface to create overrides or anything like that. I just use FTP and direct access the files, or use something like PHP Storm. And so now having two different locations where you've got to kind of change assets is...
Actually, assets in Joomla 4 should be only in /media, nowhere else. So if everybody will pick up this idea that somehow it's better for interoperability and helpful for everybody to converge into one standard and not everybody's doing whatever they want to do, it will be better. And if it gets better, it means that front-end developers will look Joomla in a different way again. Because right now, Joomla is extremely hostile for anybody that is doing front-end work. Extremely hostile.
Wow.
Just one question, if I may. When would you use, because Joomla still has the overrides, right? So when would you use overrides or the system of child template? Obviously, like the two examples you took, adding a position was not possible with an override. So obviously, child template is the only option. Again, index.php, there was no way to override that. So child template is the best way. But where overrides were an option in Joomla, so for an article view, for example, single article view, when would you say, in this case, use an override, or no, you're better off with a child template?
So the easy answer is that if you go to Cassiopeia, right? Cassiopeia already rolls with its own layouts, with its own layout overrides. So if somehow you want to have this overridden, like the one that Cassiopeia already provides, but you want to somehow tweak it a little bit, then you only have the only way that you can do it is through a child template. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that you don't need child templates for overrides. That it's your overrides, user-created overrides, but you need child templates for the overrides that the template itself provides.
I mean, in general, all that is nothing new. There is nothing which you could not do without child templates by copying the complete template. The main difference is if you copy a template, it's like having installed a new extension, and there is no relationship between the copied template and where it comes from. The copied template doesn't know it is a copy of Cassiopeia or whatever else template. It is a standalone template, so it needs all the files and all the logic. While the child template, and that's the new thing, it first of all avoids that you have to copy all the template. And it keeps a relationship, so you know that the template so-and-so is a child of which template. And that's the main difference, in my opinion.
Also, a big shout to Richard. He's responsible for all the update procedure of the Cassiopeia and Atom. Without his help, we wouldn't be here. Thank you.
He's responsible for sing-alongs quite late in Joomla London as well, but that's another story. So, I mean, the other feature that I can see, and I might be wrong here, is that if you introduce a new feature into your template, and it's not in your files with your child template, but the child template effectively inherits it from the main template, so you could use it and you could override it. Yes. Whereas if you were to do it as a separate one, then you wouldn't inherit from the... and that's kind of a bit what Utheme do. They constantly add things, and effectively it's styles you're really seeing each time that they do a new template, because you're basically always using Utheme Pro 2, and it's just different configurations of and extensions too. So when they update it, when you update it, you're updating the functionality to the very latest version. Whereas in the past, what used to happen was we would add a template, and it's then fixed at the point where that template club did it, and they will do bug fixes, but effectively you don't get any new features that they then introduce. Whereas with this, in theory, I suppose in Joomla, I'm not saying that you're going to do it, but in Joomla 4.1, you could get an update to Cassiopeia with new functionality, whereby you push a button and it pushes out aroma through your keyboard. And in theory, your child template should inherit that as well.
Yes, it will. It will by definition. The only problem that it's theoretical is that if you, let's say, you remember we created something, a field. So if you create a field like this in your child template, and then somehow also the parent roles with the same thing.
We're not seeing any change. Were you doing something on the screen? I didn't see anything change.
Sorry, I don't.
Oh no, I can see it now.
Yeah, it's this line. Like we added this line. If the parent template also rolled, you rolled this feature yourself. If the parent template also rolls that thing with different defaults, you're not gonna abide to the defaults of the parent. You're gonna have your own.
Yes,
but it's not gonna break.
Yes, that's very clever. Yeah, that's brilliant. Well, that is beautifully timed as well. We've got to 9 o'clock exactly, which is pub time. Can I say a huge thank you to both of our speakers? But that is actually, hang on. But someone spoiled the timing. But to add a module position, you have to change index.php. New functionality added to Cassiopeia probably affects the index.php. So you'd have to make sure these apply changes. Yes. And so that's it. Whenever there's an update that conflicts with your file, but just your files, then you have to run through it and just see. Whereas in the past, you had to do everything because you didn't remember where you put all the changes.
Just to mention something here, the files will never conflict. just in case that you have an update that there is, let's say, securities or whatever that you have to apply, then you have to do it yourself. But it doesn't matter if the Cassiopeia completely changed and you have a different index to the PHP. You will always read your own code. You will never go to the parent.
Yeah, which is lovely because then that means I can keep my own bugs.
Yes, forever. Thank me for that.
I'm pleased. I'm pleased with some of those. It's taken a long time to muster them. Well, thanks for that. It's brilliant. That is really good. And is there a diff like overrides? I think these are things that are being talked about coming in, but get 4.1 in first, and then perhaps I heard Dimitris saying that the interface needed perhaps revamping. So maybe differences in the overrides would be a thing.
Yes, it will come, but I don't think it will come in 4.1. I mean, 4.1, I think Benjamin today released another beta version.
Can I say that he did it within a second? We both had a screen up so we could push our buttons at the same time, and it was exactly 6 o'clock that it was released. I mean, we've been within minutes, but it's within a second now. So exactly 6 o'clock this evening, beta 2 was released.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not making any promises because, I did the promise last time for Joomla 4 for child templates, so I don't want to make any promises that I will not be able to fulfill.
But can I just also, you mentioned something about GitHub and hostility, and I know that you've been personally attacked in GitHub on times, and it's one of those things that I'd just like to say to everybody. In Joomla London, in Bugs and Fun at Home, which we started a couple of years ago, and things like that, it's basically anyone can just say anything about the code, and you should allow them to. And so Dimitris has very strong opinions about jQuery. He loves it. He accepts it. He adds it to everything. And so he's allowed to say that. And you can say that jQuery sucks, but you don't say Dimitris sucks. I think that's the thing that I think we need to learn in GitHub, that it's about the code.
Actually, you can say my bug sucks, and I will be okay with it because I don't have this opinion that whatever I write is good. I have a gazillion of pull requests that have been rightfully ignored, and that's how life goes. We're not always writing the best code, so it's okay. And
it's a learning process. We all learn off each other. I mean, you just taught so much tonight, and both the speakers tonight have gone, little light bulbs have gone off in my head going, oh wow, now I know how to do that, or now I know how to try and find out how to do that, and that's so helpful. And I think what we've got to do, why I'm bringing it up here is because a lot of us are in GitHub that are in this, Joomla London has got a lot of developers in it. And one of the things that we must do is when something gets personal, just say, hey guys, calm it down. We talk about the code. We don't talk about the person. And I think that would really help, because there's some of us that tried that a while ago and it has made a difference and it has got better. It had been very hostile. And I think it was a concerted effort that has brought it round. And it's something I feel we do need to keep saying, that this is a place where we may disagree. Me and Gary, we disagree on virtually everything, but we do. But it's taking out the personality out of it, and just I've seen both camps. I've actually gone into something thinking, oh, you're wrong and they're right. And then I've listened and gone, oh, actually, they've got good points as well. And I think this is it. Listening can change your attitude quite a lot. And if you get passionate about the person rather than code, it just all gets a bit messy. So please, anyone that's in this room, if you see in GitHub, we've got a new lot of Joomla GSOC students starting. And again, they're learning. They'll be trampling all over our GitHub repositories. And we've tried to explain nothing that's further than 6 months in the past. Don't open issues that are 5 years old that you can solve them. But please, all of us, we're all responsible for this, to make the attitude better. I might not be up to the standards to be able to comment on some of the code and all that, but I can comment on the attitude. If I feel it's friendly, I know it's friendly, I learn better.
Yeah,
so if I feel it's
like
hostile,
Laura said, just be kind, just be respectful. It's
exactly.
I hope you know it's only a very small minority, less than a handful of people who really attack others personally. And it's always the same people. The normal behavior is not like this, and the vast majority of all of us are handling people friendly, from my point of view. So, but you are right. If we see something is going wrong, we should not just be quiet and think it's okay. Let them do their stuff. We should, of course, step into it and say, hey, you are attacking personally, that's not right.
There is also something else, Philip, which you always bring up.
It's definitely not our normal setup. It's small exceptions which happen from time to time.
Philip, we also have to remember that we're a multinational, multicultural structure with, different languages and all sorts. So the way somebody says something can trigger somebody else from another country or another language. And very often you just have to step back and, see what they're trying, like you said, listen and try and see if you can understand what they mean.
Yeah, my first thing in leadership was the CNS release team. When Robert left, there was a complaint, and it was really interesting because it was in German and Italian, and they both used an English phrase and both got it wrong. And they both assumed it meant something else. So I'm standing in the middle going, well, I can totally see what he means. But he wasn't insulting you. That was just a bad use of an English phrase, which you've then taken the other way. And it was totally multicultural. It was fascinating to watch.
Yeah.
And I had to reassure them that, honestly, there's no insult in what was said. And I also know there's no insult in what was meant. But other people have been insulting, and they have criticised people specifically. And I know, Dimitris, you've been on the sharp end of it. And, we thank you for continuing with what you've done, bringing us this brilliant little feature. And we all can help to make it a nicer place.